Good morning. If we could ask everyone to please take their seats, we'll be starting very shortly the presentation of the economic outlook. Thank you. On commence à 9h pile, c'est en 30 secondes. Hein? Okay. Et je vais commencer. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for the presentation of the OECD's latest economic outlook. I'd like to mention there is a simultaneous interpretation available here in the room. You have devices below your seats. I would just note that Channel 1 is English, Channel 2 is French, Channel 3 Spanish, Channel 4 Italian, Channel 5 Japanese, Channel 6 Vietnamese. I'd also like to say today's presentation will take part in two presentations. We'll have one from the OECD Secretary General, Mathias Cormann, followed by the Chief Economist, Alvaro Pereira, after which we will go into Q&A. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this launch of the OECD Economic Outlook. Through to the end of 2024, the global economy showed real resilience, with GDP growth of 3.3% for the year. But the global economic environment has become significantly more challenging since. From January to March this year, GDP growth across the OECD area dropped abruptly to 0.1% over the previous quarter, the slowest rate of growth since the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic some 5 years ago. Bilateral tariff rates between the United States and its trading partners have risen sharply, with significant consequences for growth and for inflation. Measures of trade policy uncertainty based on print media have increased to unprecedented levels. Near-term indicators point to a weakening of economic activity, with surveys showing declining consumer confidence, with policy uncertainty also undermining business confidence. Since our last interim outlook, we have further revised our projections for global GDP growth downwards. Global growth is projected to slow from 3.3% in 2024 to 2.9%, both for this year and next. This is down a further 0.2 percentage points for this year and 0.1 percentage points for next year compared to the March interim outlook, and it is 0.4% down for both 2025 and 2026 since our economic outlook 6 months ago in December 2024. Higher trade costs are contributing to renewed inflationary pressures. We expect inflation in G20 economies over this year and next to decline more slowly and remain higher for longer than previously foreseen in our December 2024 outlook. Turning to some country-specific developments. In the United States, growth is expected to slow. The main headwinds are lower export growth as a result of retaliatory measures from some trading partners, the impact of high policy uncertainty, and a marked slowdown in net immigration. US GDP growth is projected to decline from 2.8% last year to 1.6% this year and 1.5% next year. In the euro area, growth is expected to strengthen modestly from 0.8% in 2024 to 1% this year and 1.2% next year. Improved credit conditions as a result of monetary policy easing and increased investment from next generation EU funds will help offset the impact of pressures on trade. In Japan, strong wage gains and business investment growth are supporting activity. Growth is expected to improve from 0.2% last year to 0.7% this year, and then to moderate to 0.4% in 2026 due to more subdued external demand. Emerging Asia, that is China, India, Indonesia, and 7 other dynamic Asian economies, continues to account for more than half of global growth. Still, the increase in tariffs will weaken growth in China, while fiscal measures such as subsidies for consumer goods help cushion the slowdown. We expect growth to moderate from 5% last year to 4.7% in 2025 and 4.3% in 2026. There are significant risks to this economic outlook. The outlook for trade and trade policy is particularly uncertain. Additional increases in trade barriers or prolonged policy uncertainty would further lower growth prospects and likely push inflation higher in countries imposing tariffs. Our report estimates that in a scenario in which US bilateral tariffs are raised by an additional 10 percentage points on all countries as compared with the rates in force as of mid-May, global GDP would be about 0.3% lower after 2 years. Canada, Mexico and the United States would be particularly affected given their close economic and trade integration. On the flip side, though, on the upside, measures to reduce trade barriers or to resolve concerns about aspects of the global rules-based trading system on the basis of keeping markets open and maintaining and preserving the economic benefits of open markets and rules-based global trade could lift sentiment, lower trade costs, support growth, and help ease inflationary pressures. Persistent inflation remains another key risk. Goods price inflation ticked up at the beginning of the year, primarily due to rising food prices, while service price inflation has remained relatively high. Inflation expectations by households have moved up in some countries, particularly the United States, likely related to an increase in expected costs for imports. Higher inflationary pressures would require monetary policy to remain restrictive for longer, raising borrowing costs and slowing economic activity. So the key policy priorities in this context: constructive dialogue to ensure a lasting resolution to current trade tensions, prudent monetary and fiscal policy, and ambitious structural reforms to reinvigorate longer-term growth. In relation to the higher trade policy uncertainty and tariffs over the past few months, our key recommendation to all governments is to engage with each other to address issues in the global trading system cooperatively, to talk the issues through among market-based democracies and beyond with any partner countries around the world prepared to engage in good faith conversations about how best to make the global rules-based trading system fairer and work better for everyone. The OECD is in many ways a perfect platform for some of those very important multilateral conversations. And to put some numbers around the opportunity, according to our analysis, a broad-based global decline of tariff rates by 1.5 percentage points could boost global GDP, or could boost GDP by 0.2% in G20 advanced economies and almost 0.3% in G20 emerging economies within 3 years, while also helping to bring inflation down. The OECD's unique data analysis standards and tools in areas ranging from market-distorting subsidies to the importance of competitive neutrality, sound corporate governance of state-owned enterprises, and responsible business conduct can provide important input into key bilateral and multilateral conversations about improving global trading arrangements. Monetary policy will need to be carefully calibrated. Central banks should remain vigilant in view of the high policy uncertainty and the potential for higher trade costs to affect wages, prices and demand. If inflation expectations remain well anchored and trade tensions do not escalate, policy rate reductions can continue in countries where inflation is projected to moderate or stay subdued. In our projections, we expect continued policy rate reductions in several large OECD economies, including the euro area, the United Kingdom and the United States. On fiscal policy, governments need to focus on rebuilding fiscal space and on preserving room for future spending pressures. Last year, public debt in the OECD stood at 112% of GDP, up from 73% in 2007. And debt servicing costs are on the rise. Our global debt report released in March shows that government interest payments increased as a share of GDP in about 2/3 of OECD countries last year, reaching 3.3% on average. In parallel, defence spending requirements have been increasing in Europe and elsewhere, though it is still below countries' own targets, forcing difficult choices about the pace and the composition of fiscal adjustment. Pension and social policies, for example, the two largest items in government budgets, could be made more effective through better work incentives for older workers and targeting of social benefits. While responding to the immediate economic challenges, we must also lay the groundwork for stronger growth prospects in the medium and long term. Potential per capita growth for the OECD this year is estimated at 1.3%, which is down from around 2% in the 1990s. Job creation has been a central driver of growth in recent years, while productivity growth and investment have both declined significantly. Ambitious structural reforms are key to unlocking higher investment and productivity, ensuring they once again become stronger drivers of growth, including by boosting competition and reducing barriers to firm entry, lowering regulatory costs for businesses, reducing policy uncertainty, improving opportunities for financing, especially for young, innovative firms, and ensuring a skilled, flexible, and adaptable workforce. In closing, while we're facing significant economic headwinds, we have the tools to make progress on key structural reforms, support productive international cooperation for greater policy certainty, and foster strong, sustainable, inclusive, and resilient growth. Thank you, and with that, I pass the floor to our Chief Economist, Alvaro Pereira, to present some of the details of our analysis underpinning this economic outlook. Thank you.
Just would like to first thank the teams that work on this economic outlook, in particular the MPR team and also all the economics department and the desks. So the overarching theme of this economic outlook is tackling uncertainty, reviving growth. We have significant, unprecedented, as we just heard the Secretary General, uncertainty surrounding economic policy, trade policy, and this is having significant repercussions as well in our indicators. So we saw from the Secretary General's presentation that consumer confidence is coming down, but if you look at business confidence and other activity indicators, like the PMI composite output, you can see that in countries like Canada, Mexico, Spain, the United States, and others have experienced a decline in their activity indicators. The same thing, as I said, for sentiment indicators. One of the reasons for this is, as I said, trade uncertainty and the significant change in trade policy in the United States. Basically, this graph tells you the average effective tariffs in the United States in the last 130 years. You can see that if you take into account right now the assumption that we make in this economic outlook, which is basically tariffs from May 14th or mid-May go forward, you can see that basically the average tariff rate for the United States right now is the highest since 1936. And if you take this to the April 9th tariff announcements, then it would be the highest since the 1890s. These have significant implications, as we saw for consumer, for investor, but also the question is, will it happen for trade? Well, in the first quarter of 2025, in fact, trade was fairly resilient. We had the largest quarter of trade growth in the last 4 years, and this is mostly because a lot of firms in the steel sector, aluminum, pharmaceuticals, front-loaded their exports to the United States to try to avoid these tariffs. That's why the trade growth has held up and has been fairly resilient. But we expect that there will be some adjustment, even though trade growth will be around 2.7% this year, which is about a percentage point lower than we had forecasted, as we'll see later. So all these consequences, lower confidence in consumer, lower confidence for investment, the uncertainty surrounding trade and economic policy is having also a consequence. And because of this, we also downgraded our forecasts for the world economy. So as we heard, right now our forecast is a growth of about 2.9%. But the most important thing, if you see this graph, if you see this table in terms of numbers, and you see the next, which is basically gives you the G20, non-G20 economies. It doesn't matter if you are a G20 economy, a non-G20 economy, if you are big or if you are a small economy, if you are open or relatively more closed, we downgraded almost everybody in terms of our forecasts. Just noticeable exceptions with Argentina's recovering from significant crisis. The adjustment, the structural reforms are paying off. Inflation is coming down. And this is having a positive consequence. And in other countries, either because of particular factors, there's been an upgrade, but basically we downgrade almost everybody. In terms of inflation, as we just heard as well, we expect inflation will stay higher for longer periods of time. We expect, for example, in the United States, inflation will reach close to 4% at the end of the year, and then will come down next year. But for most countries, inflation will stay a bit higher for longer because of all these factors, even though we do think that by the end of 26, they'll be closer to their targets. In terms of risks, we first started with the risk of further trade fragmentation will harm global growth. So we have a simulation in which we say, if we have additional tariffs, about 10% from the United States vis-à-vis the rest of the world, what will be the consequence? And the first consequence is what you see in the red column, basically direct impact from tariffs in terms of output. Remember, tariffs usually tend to increase intermediary inputs and also other factors in the economy. And so tariffs will have an impact, but then afterwards there'll be additional impacts, which is impact on equity markets, usually go down, increases in savings. And so this is what you see in the green and orange line. So the overall impact for the United States will be about, after 2 years, about 1.6% growth less, and for the world, less than 1% growth altogether. So this is a significant risk. Now, this is very important to get trade agreements, get to the table, get trade agreements so that we avoid further trade fragmentation. And in fact, we lower trade barriers. On the other hand, we also know that, as we saw in the presentation of the Secretary General, debt levels are fairly high, and in fact, not only debt levels are already very high, but also spending pressures are rising. So we have defense expenditures that are rising. We have expenditures related to the green transition that also are quite important, and they are rising. And on the other hand, we also have spending associated with the aging costs. Aging is one of the big advances of humanity. We are getting, in terms of life expectancy, 2 years per decade. But if nothing happens, if policy stays unchanged, there will be a significant cost. And here you have the cost for your economies in terms of pension expenditures, long-term care, and also health expenditures. And for certain countries, this is a big item and will add to the spending pressure. So basically, these future spending pressures obviously pose a significant challenge for public debt sustainability, and this is a risk going forward. On the other hand, we also know that tighter financial conditions have a significant risk for many low-income countries. In particular, as we see in this graph, and as Secretary General mentioned in our debt report that was launched in March, you can see that about 40% of debt that will be refinanced and needs to be refinanced in the next 2 years is from highly speculative debt. So, there's a risk that refinancing might be difficult for some of these countries. And on the other hand, in terms of financial market as well, there's historical elevated valuations in many of these equity markets. And so if there's a shock, a negative shock, this might pose a vulnerability going forward. So what type of policies, since we have these conditions, what type of policies is the OECD recommending right now? So first of all, first and foremost, top policy priority, negotiations and especially trade agreements, dialogue going so that we are able to lower trade barriers. In this graph, what you can see is the OECD forecast in December for trade growth compared to what is our forecast right now. You can see there's a big gap between the two lines. We are revised down significantly our trade growth projection, and this means basically if instead of having additional trade barriers, if we lower trade barriers, as we saw the simulation before, we'll have a positive impact on growth. On the other hand, monetary policy needs to remain vigilant, since now we have an environment in which goods price inflation ticked up a little bit, service price inflation continues to be fairly sticky, at the same time that we have additional pressures from the tariff environment. So basically, monetary policy needs to remain vigilant going forward. And on the other hand, given the big spending pressures and the high debt that we have in the world economy, it's quite important to be able to take some fiscal action and go back to fiscal discipline for many of the countries. We don't expect significant fiscal consolidation for most of the countries that we follow. Having said that, we do think that, first of all, in this graph you can see what your average country is spending on the different items, and we think in many of these items it's possible, if you undertake spending reviews, to find spending efficiencies, but more importantly, we also think that it's quite important to strengthen medium-term frameworks, so fiscal frameworks in the future. Don't look only at the short run, think about medium and long term. What are the consequences? So establish these medium-term fiscal frameworks, introducing, if you don't have them, independent fiscal institutions, and also broadening tax bases and lowering rates sometimes, depending on our circumstances, might be a good option going forward in terms of fiscal. Above all, we think that right now, in order to revive growth, you need to do one thing that is absolutely essential, which is revive investment. So in our special chapter, we have a lot of evidence, new evidence in terms of investment. And first of all, we know that investment is one of the contributing factors for lowering the output growth, potential growth in the past few years. So in the blue columns you see investment there, and productivity has come down, but in particular also investment has been fairly weak after the financial crisis. And you can see this particularly in these graphs that show what happened after the global financial crisis and after COVID. So the actual investment line is the blue line. The dotted line is the trend that existed in terms of investment before the global financial crisis. The dotted orange line is the trend that existed before COVID. And for OECD countries, investment went down by an average 22% after the global financial crisis, and went down in terms of business investment, in terms of housing investment, and in terms of public investment. And with COVID, another additional 7%. So we have a big two cuts in terms of or declines of investment after the global financial crisis and after the COVID. And for emerging market economies, even more, a 33% decline in investment. So reviving investment is absolutely key. What type of investment? Well, investment is changing. We present a lot of evidence. A lot of investment right now, rather than be traditional capital stock investment, is mostly investment shifting towards more digital and knowledge-based economies. Here we have several items in terms of ICT, in terms of research and development and software. The United States is investing a lot more in these areas than almost everybody else, and this has big consequences not only for investment but also for productivity. In recent work, we showed for the G7 economies that there is a widening and increasing divergence in terms of productivity between the United States and others. But investing in ICT, investing in R&D, investing in software and data is going to be absolutely key to revive investment in your countries. On the other hand, housing investment has been very weak. In many of your countries, there's significant issues regarding housing affordability. House prices went up quite significantly compared to income growth. And this is seen in the graph here, where you see countries like Portugal, Canada, the United States, Netherlands, and others, in which house prices since 2015 increased a lot more than income growth. And so housing affordability issues became quite prevalent. So very important to increase supply, reducing zoning restrictions, permits, to increase supply, densify cities to be able to address these housing affordability issues. We have several analyses and several recommendations in our economic outlook, but this table basically summarizes the main recommendations we give to your countries and in our country notes. We think that in terms of reviving investment, you need to boost competition, also increasing public investment, in particular in areas like energy security, critical infrastructures, strengthen transportation networks. All that is going to be very important to boost public investment. Also, addressing skill shortages. If you remember, last economic outlook, we said that there is, in more than close to 40 countries, significant skill shortages around the OECD. And so it's absolutely essential to address these skill shortages to improve investment, but also other recommendations on housing and on financial markets and so on. Let me sum up. So remember, we are in an era of very significant and unprecedented uncertainty. This is having an impact for consumption, for investment, and for activity. And that's why we downgraded most of the outlook for most of the countries. In terms of policies, the most important one, remember, the top policy priority is to lower trade barriers so that we are able to boost growth and have less inflationary pressures. We also think that it's quite important for fiscal discipline to come back to some of the countries to ensure fiscal sustainability. Vigilance in terms of monetary policy, but the most important factor in terms of reviving growth is to revive investment. Investment policy should be a top priority for the medium and long term, and we hope that our recommendations are able to provide shed some light on these issues for countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alvaro, Secretary General. We'll now move to questions for those here in the room. For those online, please feel free to put your questions into the Zoom. We'll try to get to some of those, but here in the room first, we'll go right there. Please introduce yourself.
Ángel Calvo from the Spanish press news agency EFE. Your outlook is clear about the effects on the short term for the US and for the other countries because of the Trump tariffs. But in the long term, what can happen? I mean, Donald Trump can success to relocalize a part of these imports which have now tariffs, and in the other side, what will happen with all these products that in the past went to the US and because of the tariffs, for example, Chinese products or other, cannot go to the US, where these products will go and which will be the effect?
Well, I'm going to ask Alvaro to complement my answer, but let me just reinforce the point. the best possible forward trajectory and the best possible direction will be one based on a dialogue, bilateral and multilateral dialogue, and sharing the diagnostic of what the challenges and issues are in the way the global rules-based trading system is working at present, and to come up with the best possible ways to make international trading arrangements, global trading arrangements, fairer and work better, while preserving the unquestionable economic benefits of open markets and rules-based global trade. The efficiency benefits, the benefits in terms of innovation, competitiveness, driving costs down, ensuring that consumers and businesses have access to the highest quality goods at the best and services at the best possible prices, and indeed, driving increased incomes, driving lower costs. Now, there are some real issues to be tackled in terms of the way global rules-based trading arrangements are currently working. There are things to be done to improve economic security, to increase the resilience of supply chains, to improve the global level playing field. But the best way to do it is, in particular, for market-based democracies to work together on the best possible ways forward, and for market-based democracies around the world to engage with all other countries committed to reform global trading arrangements in good faith to ensure that they are fair and work better for everyone. But Alvaro.
Well, you asked about the long run. Well, in the long run, productivity growth is going to make all the difference. And so countries that are able to revise their productivity and are able to become more innovative and continue to be on the technological frontier will be the ones that will do better. In fact, that's why in recent work that we've done in terms of the impact of AI, which is a general purpose technology, will have a significant impact across the economy. One thing that we see is that right now there's a widening gap in terms of productivity growth between the United States and the rest of the OECD economies. And we expect with the artificial intelligence and the development and the investment in new technologies that the United States, as I just showed, is leading, we expect that this productivity gap will widen. So it's very important for countries around the world, if they want to revive their productivity, to bring more investment to the table, investing in this type of technologies, accelerating in the investment and addressing skill shortages is going to be quite important. So this is what is going to matter mostly in the long term. You asked about trade diversion. Well, trade diversion happens when they have very often with trade barriers. Usually exporters, if they find that one market closes, they'll try to find for others. So we wouldn't be surprised that that could happen. But we will not speculate on specific markets that this will happen. Thank you.
Looking over here for other questions, please introduce yourself.
Lee Thomas from Reuters. You've substantially downgraded your outlook for the United States vis-a-vis your March interim outlook. Could you walk us through specifically what has changed in your view for the U.S. economy since then? And as well, could you give us your quick take on the U.S. budget legislation going through Congress? Thank you very much.
Well, in terms of the outlook, we know that sentiment indicators of consumption and for investment came down. Activity indicators, I just showed you, also went down. And this is reflected not only in the soft data, but also in the hard data. So basically, what we expect will happen to consumption and investment going forward. Well, we also know that since March, there's been an increase in trade barriers, and we take this into account in our estimations, not only from our desks, but also from our models, and try to understand what will be the impact. So that's the reason why we've downgraded the United States, like we downgraded many other countries. In terms of the budget, we incorporated the budget forecasts in our own forecasts. So the extension of the tax cuts and all the other tax cuts are incorporated in our forecasts. Thank you.
Looking over here, are there other questions from journalists in the room? I do not see Any other questions? Therefore, we will close the press conference. Thank you very much. All
Thank
the
you very
information,
much.
the Economic Outlook is available on the website.
Secretary General of the OECD, Mr. Mathias Cormann, the 2025 MCM Chair and Minister of Foreign Trade for Costa Rica, Mr. Manuel Tovar, and Ministers for the MCM Vice Chairs, Australia, Canada, and Lithuania.
Prime Minister of Ukraine, dear Dennis, a very warm welcome to the OECD, ministers, excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, friends all. A very warm welcome to you all to this, the 2025 Ministerial Council Meeting of the OECD. Leading the way towards resilient, inclusive and sustainable prosperity through rules-based trade, investment and innovation. The theme of this year's MCM goes to the core of our mission as your organisation for economic cooperation and development. As we gather here today, the world stands at an inflection point. The global economy is more interconnected and more interdependent than ever. The need to work together and find solutions together to the challenges of our time is more important than ever. And after a period of remarkable global economic resilience in recent years, the global economic outlook has become more challenging. Despite a series of external shocks from COVID to the economic and social impacts of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, the energy crisis and the period of high inflation that followed, rising geopolitical tensions and more, in all of the circumstances, the global economy continued to grow at a comparatively healthy rate of above 3%. However, as we are meeting here today, the outlook for the global economy and the outlook for growth across most economies around the world has become more subdued. Earlier today, we released our economic outlook, projecting global growth to fall below 3%, for inflation to decline more slowly. And the context is the significantly increased economic and trade policy uncertainty, tighter financial conditions, lower business and consumer confidence, and the impact it has on investment and activity that we're observing, which has led to this downgrade in our economic growth outlook. And all of that, of course, against the background of continued structural challenges and transformations. Low productivity growth and rising trade restrictions are leading to a lower economic growth trajectory if left unaddressed. We need to better prepare for the economic, social and fiscal impacts of population ageing, including by accelerating and strengthening our efforts to boost economic performance through the more ambitious pursuit of genuine gender equality. We need to keep focusing on tackling the challenges and opportunities associated with climate change in a globally more coherent and effective way together. We need to give ourselves the best chance to seize all the many exciting benefits for humanity of the digital transformation and AI, while better managing some of the associated risks and disruptions. And we need to find better ways to make our global rules-based trading system fairer and work better, to tackle unfair trade practices, boost economic security and improve supply chain resilience in a way that helps us preserve the well-established economic benefits of open markets and rules-based global trade. Colleagues, we need to talk. We need to find ways to solve issues through dialogue and cooperation. And I know you agree, because you have come to this Ministerial Council meeting in record numbers, at least during my time in this job. This Ministerial Council meeting has assembled the largest number of senior ministers from across our membership and beyond yet during my time in this job. There is clearly a strong appetite to have the necessary conversations on a better way forward. And this MCM is a very important opportunity for OECD members and our partner countries to engage about the best ways forward, including and especially about how to restore economic and trade policy certainty through dialogue and cooperation. We know that it would deliver immediate economic and social dividends in terms of stronger growth, better opportunities for people around the world, and our capacity to concentrate on successfully tackling all the other challenges in front of us, leading the way back towards resilient, inclusive and sustainable prosperity through rules-based trade, investment and innovation. Here at the OECD, we will continue to support you. We provide the objective data and analysis across the economic, social and environmental policy spectrum to help inform your discussions and to help inform your decisions. Importantly, we provide a trusted platform for the multilateral dialogue the world needs you to have. And over the next 2 days, I strongly encourage you to have as many bilateral and multilateral conversations in informal and formal settings as you possibly can to try and find the best ways forward. At this year's Ministerial Council meeting, you will also have the opportunity to further strengthen the rules-based system together. You will have the opportunity to welcome a new recommendation on eliminating government support to illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, which will foster a more level playing field for sustainable fishing practices and ensure a future for our shared fisheries resources in the years to come. You will consider adopting a revised recommendation on merger reviews to help ensure our competition law and policy frameworks are as effective as we need them to be in protecting competition and ultimately encouraging business dynamism and innovation in our economies. And you will discuss adopting a new recommendation on digital technologies and the environment to harness their potential for greater sustainability and efficiency, while better managing their impacts, including energy use and electronics waste. You will consider the OECD's latest evidence-based insights on supply chain resilience, trade, gender data and gender equality, foreign direct investment and climate, and you will provide guidance on the way forward for an AI policy toolkit to support policymakers in implementing our landmark AI principles. And you will shape the OECD's efforts to further advance our global engagement, which is truly fundamental to our organization's continued relevance, effectiveness and impact, and indeed a testament to the continuing interests of countries around the world to engage and adhere to our standards and best practices. This includes taking stock of our accession processes with a record 8 candidate countries, including Indonesia, which is submitting its initial memorandum at this MCM later today, a major milestone in their accession journey. To deepen our engagement with Latin America and the Caribbean, a region of extraordinary human and natural potential and home to 4 of our members and 3 accession candidates and many more important partners, you will discuss a new strategic framework and a new Paraguay country program, and you will also take stock of the very significant progress made under the Ukraine country program in areas ranging from energy sector reform to a substantially strengthened anti-corruption and integrity framework. And Prime Minister, dear Dennis, thank you again for joining us today to demonstrate your continuing strong commitment to deepening engagement with the OECD. And thank you in particular for your strong personal leadership in pursuing the increased alignment of Ukraine's legislation, policies and practices with OECD standards and best practices. We continue to stand with the people of Ukraine in your pursuit of a bright, peaceful, prosperous and European future. Colleagues, at last year's Ministerial Council meeting, ministers also gave us the mandate to start developing a new OECD strategy on development. During this Ministerial Council meeting, you will have the opportunity to consider my update on our collective progress towards finalizing that strategy, including the broad and inclusive consultations we have conducted with our partner countries and stakeholders, with OECD key partners, accession candidate countries, business and labour representatives, philanthropy, as well as international and civil society organisations. These consultations have provided a valuable opportunity to exchange, to learn from and build trust with a broad range of partner countries and stakeholders, to help shape the future direction of the OECD's work on development. Looking ahead, we must continue to advance a whole of OECD approach to ensure our organisation remains relevant and impactful, in fact improves our relevance and impact when it comes to responding to the needs of a diversity of country contexts and complex development challenges. We will continue to engage on the development strategy by ensuring outcomes of the upcoming Financing for Development Conference in Seville and other international events in 2025 are appropriately reflected in our work. In closing, the next 2 days are an opportunity for open and, yes, very frank, but most of all, constructive, pragmatic, and solutions-oriented dialogue. I am so much looking forward to our discussions over these next few days, to your insights and contributions, as you shape the direction of this organization, your organization, for the year ahead, advancing new, impactful tools for effective policy cooperation and working together to build a better future. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, we will now hear an introductory message from the President of Costa Rica, Rodrigo Chavez Robles, but very warm welcome, and this MCM is now being officially opened. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, as President of the Republic of Costa Rica, I feel a great honor and pride to welcome you to the 2025 OECD Ministerial Council Meeting. Just a few years ago, Costa Rica was the newcomer in this organization, the new kid in the block. Today, we have the privilege of chairing this important gathering for the future of our economies and especially our democracies. And we do so with humility, yes, but also with our heads held very high, because this moment confirms something very clearly. When a country commits to excellence, to transparency, and to purposeful development, results must follow. I extend my deepest thanks to our partners in this presidency, Australia, Canada, and Lithuania. I thank you for your leadership and vision. From afar, thank you for walking this path alongside with us. This forum should not be a stage for just polished speeches. It must be a platform for action. And Costa Rica comes here to speak clearly. We believe in the power of international cooperation grounded in rules, in evidence, and in shared values. Freedom, democracy, the rule of law, and human rights are not diplomatic ornaments or just beautiful words. They are the pillars upon which we need to build our societies. And if we don't protect them with determination, the world's tremors can shake the very foundations of our societies. Because growth is meaningless if it is not shared widely among all members of society. Our common goal must be just one: to improve people's lives through better distribution of opportunities, to give every member of our societies the opportunity to prosper and to develop as a human being. That's why the priority of this forum must be to push for solutions to key challenges such as economic security, resilient supply chains, women's empowerment, the empowerment of every citizen, and the transition to digital and sustainable economies. And if that requires bold decisions, even uncomfortable ones, then so it must be. Because if we have learned anything, it's this: true transformation does not come from cozy consensus. It comes from disruption. It needs courage, bold action. This ministerial meeting should not be just another photo for the archives. Its theme, charting the path to resilient, inclusive, and sustainable prosperity through rules-based trade, investment, and innovation, cannot remain just a long slogan. It must become a roadmap, a commitment, the plan for action in order to achieve shared prosperity among nations and within nations. We are here to build with decisive action and to lead with clarity and purpose. The world needs us united, cooperating instead of competing against one another. The OECD must stay the course. It must remain the guiding light that helps governments think better, serve better, and be held accountable to their citizens, but also to the rest of the world. I thank Mathias Cormann for his leadership, and each of you for placing your trust in Costa Rica in delivering this important responsibility. Let us be ambitious, let us be bold, and above all, let us remain faithful to the people who elected us to serve them. Thank you very much. May God bless you all.
We now invite the Chair, Minister of Foreign Trade of Costa Rica, Mr. Manuel Tovar, to the far podium.
De l'OCDE, Mathias Cormann, Monsieur le Premier ministre de l'Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal, Monsieur, Mesdames les ministres, Excellences, chers amis. C'est avec gratitude et un profond sens de responsabilité que j'inaugure la 64e réunion du Conseil de l'OCDE au niveau des ministres, accompagné par l'Australie, le Canada et la Lithuanie en tant que vice-président. Je tiens à saluer le leadership visionnaire du Monsieur le Secrétaire général, Mathias Cormann, dont l'engagement constant renforce le rôle de l'OCDE en tant que pilier de la coopération internationale. Seulement 4 ans après l'adhésion du Costa Rica à cette organisation remarquable, me tenir devant vous aujourd'hui me rappelle que l'histoire est quelque chose que l'on façonne. À notre époque, marquée par les incertitudes et les tensions, ces moments témoignent de notre capacité à nous rassembler autour des valeurs communes dans un esprit d'unité, de convergence et d'engagement partagé. En ce lieu, au cœur de Paris, nous avons l'opportunité de démontrer que la coopération internationale n'est pas une ambition lointaine, mais une réalité qui nous construisons ensemble. Ici, à l'OCDE, nous faisons le choix du dialogue et de la coopération. Dans un contexte mondial complexe, nous affirmons avec conviction que l'écoute, la solidarité et l'action collective conservent toutes leurs valeurs. Nous restons convaincus que l'écoute, la solidarité et l'action collective demeurent plus essentiel que jamais. Et face aux défis qui l'interpellent, le multilatéralisme, nous renouvelons notre engagement à le faire vivre, à l'adapter et à la renforcer au service de nos sociétés et générations futures. Dear friends, we're living through times that test not only our economies, about our values, our cohesion, our shared vision for the future. Around us blow the winds of geopolitical tensions, economic disruptions, climate change, and an accelerating tide of digital transformation. In the shadow of conflicts, including Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and other volatile dynamics across the globe, the answer is not to turn inward, but to come together. We must stand and remain united. This is why we come here together at the OECD. This organization stands as a force for transformation, a source of clarity, a driver of solutions, and a pillar of trust. It reminds us that dialogue works, that evidence matters, and that consensus is still possible and still powerful. As George Marshall once warned us, the world situation is very serious. These words apply today, and so does the underlying call to not despair, but to lead. At this turning point, we must be wise and courageous. This year, we propose the theme, leading the way toward resilient, inclusive, and sustainable prosperity through rules-based trade, investment, and innovation. Costa Rica believes that the future is not something to be awaited, but something to be built through sound policy, open dialogue, bold ideas, and shared responsibility. To enhance the resilience of our economies, we must strengthen their ability to better withstand shocks and mitigate risks by fostering policies that prioritize and promote diversification and sophistication. Through the OECD, a strong advocate for enhanced economic integration, we must actively contribute to shaping an open, rules-based, and fair multilateral trading system with the WTO at its core. We do so by fostering dialogue, promoting cooperation, and ensuring a level playing field so that the benefits of trade are more widely shared. Resilience requires a strengthened international economic order, advanced through both multilateral and plurilateral approaches. We are at a critical moment in global trade and investment, shaped by the transformative forces of digital technologies and AI. These innovations present immense opportunities for inclusive growth and development, while also demanding coordinated action to address the digital divide. The OECD plays a critical role in guiding the responsible integration of AI into our economies. We must work together to foster equitable access, advance gender equality in the digital economy, and encouraging responsible foreign investment that aligns with sustainability and international best practices. Climate change is a multifaceted challenge that extends beyond the environment, deeply impacting our trade, investment, and social and economic policies. It is time to move from evidence to action by harnessing trade and investment as powerful tools to drive sustainability and prosperity. We must advance these policies consistently with environmental goals through international cooperation and promoting new generational plurilateral agreements that reinforce the links between climate, trade, and sustainable development. We must also create the conditions to attract responsible investment, mobilize resources, and build partnerships that support our collective climate objectives. None of these are beyond our reach. OECD exists precisely to meet this kind of challenge, to turn complexity into coherence and vision into action. It stands as living proof of that multilateralism can still deliver, and that shared values, as enshrined in our convention and reaffirmed in our vision statement, can still unite us in common cause. My message is clear. Let us be bold in our choices. Let us not merely react to the global turbulence. We must shape the direction of its winds. Let us listen closely to each other. Let us innovate with purpose and responsibility. Let us continue to open doors to dialogue, to cooperation, and to creative forward-looking partnerships. We are a community of purpose and like-mindedness, a coalition of values and purpose. Our diversity is not a weakness, but rather a strength. We might have candid discussions and different views, yet our main objective is clear. We must advance to achieve common ground and to move forward together. The OECD remains a steady hand. In a world of uncertainty, reason, cooperation, and trust prevail. And here in Paris, we choose to move ahead together towards better policies for better lives. I leave you with these words from the OECD's founding vision. Let this be a beacon of what we can achieve when we come together, not despite our differences, but because we're committed to navigating them constructively. Let us choose progress over paralysis. Let us choose cooperation over confrontation. Let us rise to this challenge and lead by example. Let us seize this opportunity, and let us today lead the way. Thank you.
I now invite here to the left-hand podium the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Denis Shmyhal.
Dear Mr. Secretary General, dear Mathias, Mr. Chair, Minister Manuel Tovar, co-chairs, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to me to take part in the opening of this OECD Ministerial Council meeting. Ukraine greatly values the OECD as a vital platform for dialogue, policy development, and the exchange of the best practices, all of which contribute to long-term prosperity and economic resilience worldwide. Let me express my sincere gratitude to the chair of this meeting, Minister of Foreign Trade of Costa Rica, Mr. Manuel Tovar, for his personal attention to Ukraine. Thank you. I also thank the co-chairs, Australia, Canada, and Lithuania, and all our friends for their consistent support to Ukraine, to us. And thank you, Secretary General Cormann, dear Mathias, for your leadership and for the fruitful ongoing cooperation between Ukraine and the OECD. 2 years ago, right here in Paris, we launched the OECD program for Ukraine. It marked the beginning of a result-driven dialogue on our country's path to membership in the organization. Our goal is clear: to become a full member of the OECD and join the community of advanced economies. During the last 2 years, together with the organization, Ukraine has launched 23 initiatives and adopted 8 legal instruments. We have made tangible progress in fighting corruption. Ukraine has built a functioning anti-corruption infrastructure and has already implemented most of its national anti-corruption program, which is 80% aligned with the OECD standards. We have expanded digital governance to reduce corruption risks and their core. Tools like the Unified State Open Data Portal, the Prozoro public procurement system, and the Dream Digital Recovery ecosystem are already making measurable difference. We are also advancing broad deregulation. Around 2,000 regulatory acts have already been repealed across multiple sectors. Bureaucratic barriers for businesses have been removed, and key legal frameworks have been brought in line with the EU standards. We are also advancing in line with OECD standards on privatization and corporatization. Last year, public auctions for privatized assets saw their value grow by 50% on average, and overall revenues outperformed expectations by 250%. We completed a full triage of state-owned enterprises and defined a list of those where independent supervisory boards will be established. Procurement transparency has improved as well, with the share of competitive procedures rising by 30% last year. We are grateful to the OECD and to Secretary General Cormann personally for the strong recognition of our efforts, most recently expressed during his visit to Kyiv. The OECD latest economic survey of Ukraine highlighted our reform momentum in public investment management and the development of an investor-friendly business environment. The integrity review confirms substantial gains in our anti-corruption policies. As a result of our reforms, the share of Ukrainians who personally encounter corruption in everyday life dropped from 70% to 15% in recent years. This is a fundamental shift away from a post-Soviet paradigm toward a European model of governance. These transformations are laying the foundation for Ukraine reconstruction, future growth, and long-term prosperity. We are not returning to the past, we are building the future, an innovative, dynamic country integrated into the global economy and the international security architecture. I believe the OECD will remain a close partner on this journey. We will continue advancing reforms across all sectors at full speed, and we hope that in the next year, such meeting, Ukraine will be participating as a full-fledged member of the OECD. Once again, I want to thank the organization for its leadership. Together we can achieve more. Together we can bring peace closer, rebuild Ukraine, make the world safer, and open new horizons for our people. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
We now invite to the left-hand podium Mr. Don Farrell, Minister for Trade and Tourism for the MCM Vice.
Thank you, Secretary General, for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I worked for many years in the Australian Senate with Secretary General Cormann. I saw firsthand the way in which he improved the lives of people in Australia, and I've been so proud over the last 4 years of seeing what you've been able to do, with a little help from Australia, on the international scene, and good luck for your continued work in that area. Minister Tovar, thank you very much. You've become a very good friend, and I look forward to seeing the work you're going to do over the next couple of days to do the things that you talked about in your speech. Prime Minister Shimhal, I haven't met you before, but a couple of weeks ago I had the honour of representing Australia at the funeral of Pope Francis, where of course President Zelensky was present. I got the chance there to meet the Australian Cardinal for the first time, who happens to be a Ukrainian, Cardinal Bishok, and my youngest daughter, in December, is marrying a Ukrainian boy on our vineyard in the Clare Valley in South Australia, and the Cardinal agreed to give them a special blessing. So I'm so pleased about that. And can I say that your fight is our fight, and that's very strongly the view of the Australian government. And welcome to all distinguished guests. I'm very honoured to serve as one of the vice chairs at this year's Ministerial Council meeting. And as I said, I want to thank Minister Tovar of Costa Rica for his leadership at this meeting. And under his chairing, we meet here to find new ways to guide our societies toward resilient, inclusive and sustainable prosperity. We do so at a challenging time, a very challenging time for the rules-based multilateral trading system that has underpinned decades of global growth. Our countries have relied on this system to provide a predictable framework for the exchange of goods, services and investments that have fuelled economic stability and prosperity. While the system has served us well, it's clear that it has not kept pace with modern economic challenges. How do we respond to these challenges will determine our future prosperity and the shape of the outlook of global trade. The OECD is an important platform for us to discuss these critical issues. The OECD's unrivaled analytical capability and its capacity for evidence-based policy guidance can help strengthen and support the global trade system and help us to identify creative solutions and shared problems. We must work together to reform and strengthen the multilateral system with the World Trade Organization at its core, building on the existing rules so it can respond to global challenges. None of us, our businesses, our workers, our citizens, can afford the unpredictability, the instability and the economic costs of a world without credible, enforceable trade rules. Multilateral rules-based trade can also help to achieve our net zero transition as part of a solution to global environmental problems. Our agenda for this Council is an important opportunity to consider these issues and other shared challenges, including on economic resilience. I have great confidence that the OECD's independent evidence-based analysis on policy responses to support economic resilience will help us to address vulnerabilities in our supply chains that can disrupt trade and harm our economies. Australia supports a more diverse OECD that collaborates more deeply with a broader range of partners. A diversified OECD membership carries benefits for all parties, providing us with a stronger OECD that is more globally relevant. During our term as co-chair of the Southeast Asia Regional Programme with Vietnam, we have seen the OECD deepen engagement with Southeast Asian economies. We welcome Indonesia and Thailand's accession processes and the potential for more Southeast Asian economies to follow their lead. The OECD Southeast Asia partnership is stronger than ever. We thank Vietnam for serving with us as co-chairs and look forward to handing over the baton to the Philippines and Canada. I'm confident the partnership between the OECD and Southeast Asia will continue to deepen and broaden in coming years under their leadership. I'd also once again like to thank Costa Rica for chairing this year's MCM and acknowledge my fellow Vice Chairs, Canada and Lithuania, for their support in making this meeting a success as we strive towards a world where economies are not just strong but resilient, where policies are not just effective but equitable, and where our future is not just secure but also sustainable. Thank you very much.
We now invite here to the podium Mr. Maninder Sidhu, Minister of International Trade for the MCM Vice Chair.
Prime Minister Ismail, Ministers, Excellencies and distinguished guests. Let me start by congratulating Costa Rica as this year's chair. Manuel, my friend, thank you to you and your team for your incredible work. Canada's pleasure to work with the other vice chairs as well, Australia and Lithuania, to support you. And thank you to Secretary General Cormann for hosting us. The world is undergoing major upheavals, and many of our member countries are facing complex and unprecedented challenges in trade and in other areas. And it is our goal to help inject global stability and predictability. That stability is being challenged on many fronts, from geopolitical uncertainty to the digital and AI revolutions to environmental threats. These issues touch nearly every aspect of our lives, creating the conditions for political, social, and economic upheaval that will require a collective effort to address. In this, Canada believes that the OECD's evidence-based analyst approach can fill in knowledge gaps to help us untangle complex issues and help us find solutions to find some of our time's most fundamental challenges. Over the next 2 days, we will touch on many topics. It is Canada's sincere hope that these meaningful discussions will better position us to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. We must remain strong and united. To paraphrase His Majesty King Charles III addressed to Canada's Parliament last week, the current global trade architecture is not perfect, but has helped to deliver the prosperity and stability for many people around the world. Canada remains committed to fair, open, and diversified trade, and we are very proud of our reputation as a strong, reliable, and stable trade and investment partner. However, we cannot rest on our reputation alone. We must continue working together, both domestically and with our international partners, to create new opportunities for our people, our workers, our businesses, and our economies. This is where the OECD can also play a vital role in reinforcing a strong, rules-based, multilateral system that continues to create prosperity and open doors to those who are typically underrepresented in global trade, like women, Indigenous people, and small business owners. In a few weeks, Canada will host the G7 leaders in Kananaskis, Alberta. Over the past 50 years, the G7 has evolved beyond its original economic focus to address a broad range of global issues. As 2025 G7 President, Canada is ready to build a coalition of like-minded countries who share our values and believe in international cooperation and the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. And to demonstrate our leadership in addressing some of today's most pressing issues, from international peace and security to global economic stability and growth to the digital transition. We will also gather the G7 trade ministers to continue working together to foster a stronger global economy and prosperity. As we do, we will remain squarely focused on our goal of building resilient and strong economies and promote fair competition and predictable and stable global trade and investment, all of which support the work of the OECD. As you know, the OECD is looking to increase engagement beyond its memberships to regions across the world. As such, Canada is honoured to co-chair the OECD Southeast Asia Regional Program, SERP, for the next 3 years with the Philippines, a role that aligns with our Indo-Pacific strategy and our strategic partner with ASEAN. As we take over the co-chair role from Australia and Vietnam, who held it for the previous 3 years, we look forward to deepening and broadening our engagement in the region, and I am pleased to announce a $2 million funding envelope to support key initiatives of the SERP. In this capacity, Canada will be able to advance key themes of private sector development for inclusive and sustainable growth, sustainable infrastructure, and responsible business conduct, and help ASEAN members undertake important policy reforms. Southeast Asia is a dynamic region full of economic opportunities and challenges, and SERP offers a vehicle to address them based on globally accepted norms and best practices. Colleagues, we have a very few busy days ahead of us, and Canada hopes that all OECD members will be able to reiterate their support for their core tenets of this invaluable organization, which has served us well to date. Further, Canada hopes that we all leave this event with a better appreciation of each other's perspectives, including those of developing countries and relevant international organizations. As we seek to build stronger, more resilient, and productive economies, and a strengthened resolve to continue working together to address unfair and trade-distorting practices, none of us can do this alone. That's why Canada looks forward to working with the OECD members in a renewed spirit of shared values and consensus, building to create new opportunities, not just for Canadians, but for all of our industries, businesses, and economies. Because as His Majesty King Charles III so eloquently reminded us, we owe it to this generation and those who succeed us to think and act for the greater good of all. Thank you. Merci.
We now invite here to the podium Mr. Kęstutis Buydris, the Minister for Foreign Affairs for the MC.
It is a great honor to be here today with you in the capacity of one of the vice chairs of the 2025 OECD Ministerial Council Meeting. Let me begin by expressing sincere appreciation to Secretary General Mathias Cormann for your leadership, commitment to keep the OECD as a pillar of global cooperation and evidence-based policymaking. I warmly thank you, our MCM chair, Costa Rica, Minister Manuel Tovar, because Costa Rica and Lithuania share a special bond as we began our OECD accession journey together 10 years ago, back in 2015. It is therefore a particular pleasure to be vice chair of this MCM alongside with you, and I warmly recognize and thank our fellow vice chairs, Australia and Canada, for excellent teamwork. Thank you. Let me also take this opportunity to extend a heartfelt welcome and thank you, Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. Ukraine is not only bravely defending against unjustified and unprovoked Russia's war of aggression, it is also defending the very values that underpin this organization: democracy, rules-based international cooperation, rule of law, human rights. In this sense, supporting Ukraine is about defending our values as well. Lithuania firmly supports Ukraine, bilaterally and within the OECD. And we are proud to have initiated, together with Poland, the establishment of the OECD office in Kyiv and to support the ongoing OECD country program for Ukraine. There are not symbolic actions. They are practical, meaningful platforms for reform, recovery and reconstruction. And they contribute significantly to Ukraine's accession to the EU. This is important. We urge all OECD members and partners to contribute actively to these efforts and to strengthen their support for Ukraine. Dear colleagues, this year's MCM theme, leading the way towards resilient, inclusive and sustainable prosperity through rules-based trade, investment and innovation, directly addresses the complex challenges and emerging opportunities of our time. The breadth of this agenda reflects the scale and urgency to the issues we face. The OECD is uniquely positioned to lead in this context. Its rigorous analysis, policy guidance, deep expertise in implementing reforms that foster growth, strengthen trust in institutions, and deliver real benefits to our citizens. I want to highlight the OECD's excellent work in today's challenging environment and the vital tasks ahead as we navigate a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape, as it was already mentioned not once today. It enables countries to pursue stability and reform despite uncertainty. Let us not forget the core values that bind us as OECD members: democracy, human rights, market-based principles, and cooperation. The OECD's consensus-driven approach unites diverse perspectives around common goals. We should spare no effort in seeking common ground through dialogue and collaboration to shape better policies for better lives. At the same time, the OECD should be forward-looking and adaptive. It should continue evolving to face emerging challenges and seize new opportunities. This, among other issues, includes the responsible governance of artificial intelligence, managing the digital transformation that reshapes our economies and our societies, safeguarding information integrity, and strengthening economic resilience. The OECD is doing important work in these areas, but the pace of change requires us to do even more and to do it together. It was in this spirit that Lithuania and Japan co-hosted yesterday's MCM side event on economic security and resilience, aimed at fostering deeper cooperation and one of the most urgent challenges we face. It was a very productive discussion that underscored the need for coordinated action to reduce critical trade dependencies, strengthen supply chains, and promote diversification. It emphasized the value of like-minded cooperation and the role of multilateral frameworks and trade agreements in reinforcing economic security. The event also showcased the OECD's important contributions in helping countries navigate these challenges and craft effective, collaborative responses. Dear colleagues, In today's complex global environment, the OECD's role in extending its standards and best practices beyond its membership is more important than ever. By strengthening its global engagement, the OECD helps shape better policies worldwide and reinforces its position as a truly global standard setter. It is essential that OECD enlargement remains value-based and merit-driven. Countries that demonstrate a strong commitment to OECD principles and are willing to implement necessary reforms should be met with openness and engagement. Progress in current accession process is encouraging, and as a recent member, Lithuania stands ready to share its accession experience and support others on their path towards OECD membership. Regional initiatives are key to the OECD's global impact. We welcome the new strategic framework for Latin America and the Caribbean and support OECD's deeper engagement in other critical regions such as Eurasia and the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, the OECD strategy on development could become an important pillar of organizations' global outreach, helping the most vulnerable countries respond more effectively to emerging challenges. Dear colleagues, as we begin this MCM, let us reaffirm our shared responsibility to uphold the values of this organization, to strengthen the OECD's voice in the world, and to support each other in advancing reforms through policy advice and exchange of the best practices. Lithuania stands ready to contribute to these efforts as a committed member and vice chair of this MCM. Thank you all for being here, and I wish us all a productive MCM meeting. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me again in thanking our speakers, President Chavez Robles, Prime Minister Shmihal, Secretary General Cormann, Minister Tovar, Minister Farrell, Minister Sidhu, and Minister Boudries.
We can take a seat. Ministers, Secretary General Kao, Kim Horn, distinguished guests, friends all, a very warm welcome to this handover ceremony of the OECD Southeast Asia Regional Programme. For over a decade, the Southeast Asia Regional Programme has been an effective platform for regional integration, cooperation and domestic reform. It has helped governments across the region liberalise investment, boost the development of the small and medium-sized business sector, build sustainable infrastructure, tackle tax avoidance and grow the digital economy. In parallel, since its establishment in 2014, the programme has supported countries across the region in more than doubling their adherences to OECD instruments and their participation in OECD bodies. The programme has also benefited from and deepened our very valuable partnership with ASEAN, now strengthened with our newly appointed OECD liaison officer to ASEAN based in Jakarta. As co-chairs since 2022, Australia and Vietnam made a significant contribution to deepening the OECD's mutually beneficial engagement in Southeast Asia. Vietnam has been a highly committed and proactive co-chair, co-hosting 2 successive ministerial forums of the programme in Hanoi in 2022 and 2023, with a focus on resilient supply chains and sustainable investment, respectively. Australia has been a key supporter of the OECD Council's historic decision last year to open accession discussions with Indonesia and Thailand, our first candidates from the region, while providing practical assistance through tailored capacity building for Indonesia's accession process. At this MCM, we look forward to receiving Indonesia's initial memorandum as a major milestone towards accession to the OECD. And about a month ago, Thailand co-hosted the 2025 Southeast Asia Regional Forum, where Thailand's government shared their continued strong commitment towards the accession process and their progress in preparing their initial memorandum. We are grateful to the governments of Australia and Vietnam for your commitment and achievements over these past 3 years. You are leaving a strong legacy for our incoming chairs. In Canada and the Philippines, we welcome you as the new leaders of the Southeast Asia Regional Programme for the next 3 years. You will help shape the OECD's future engagement in the region. You will lead us in supporting Southeast Asian countries closer alignment with the OECD standards and best practices through existing and new country programs and through tailored technical assistance projects. And we will support your ambitions to enable reforms for stronger, more sustainable and inclusive economic growth by leveraging OECD data, tools and analysis, including in areas such as sustainable infrastructure, digitalisation and innovation. We look forward to continuing our productive cooperation through the Southeast Asia Regional Programme to build stronger partnerships with economies right across Southeast Asia. Thank you.
We now welcome here to the left-hand podium the Minister of Finance for outgoing Program Co-Chair Vietnam, Mr. Nguyen Thanh Thang.
Thưa ngài Manuel Tovar, Bộ trưởng Thương mại nước ngoài Costa Rica, thưa ngài Mathias, Cormann, Tổng thư ký OECD, thưa các vị lãnh đạo, quý đại biểu, tôi rất vinh dự đại diện cho chính phủ Việt Nam phát biểu tại lễ chuyển giao vai trò đồng chủ tịch chương trình Đông Nam Á CIAP của OECD. Đây là một sáng kiến chiến lược góp phần hỗ trợ cải cách kinh tế, thúc đẩy tăng trưởng bền vững và tăng cường kết nối giữa OECD và ASEAN, một khu vực năng động hàng đầu thế giới. Trong nhiệm kỳ 2022-2025, Việt Nam và Australia đồng chủ trì CIAP trong bối cảnh thế giới đối mặt với nhiều thách thức. Phục hồi sau đại dịch, chuyển đổi số và ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu, bất bình đẳng, đứt gãy chuỗi cung ứng. Chúng tôi đã xác định 3 ưu tiên cốt lõi, đó là phục hồi ngắn hạn, cải cách trung hạn và tiến gần hơn tới OECD. Cùng 4 lĩnh vực ưu tiên, đó là tự cường kinh tế, cải cách khu vực tư nhân, mở cửa thương mại đầu tư và chuyển đổi xanh, chuyển đổi số. Những nỗ lực này đã đem lại những kết quả nổi bật. Ký biên bản ghi nhớ lần đầu tiên giữa OECD và ASEAN, tạo nền tảng pháp lý và thúc đẩy hợp tác thông qua cơ chế nhóm công tác, chia sẻ dữ liệu và hỗ trợ kỹ thuật. Tổ chức thành công Diễn đàn Đông Nam Á tại Hà Nội năm 2022, mở ra cơ chế đối thoại cấp bộ trưởng thường niên giữa OECD và khu vực về chính sách và phát triển. Lần đầu tiên triển khai Prospectus, kế hoạch hợp tác thực chất trong các lĩnh vực như chuyển đổi xanh, số tăng trưởng bao trùm và nâng cao năng suất. Việt Nam tự hào đã đóng góp vào sự phát triển của CIAP như một nền tảng hợp tác khu vực hiệu quả và lâu dài. Chúng tôi tin tưởng CEAP sẽ tiếp tục là động lực gắn kết ASEAN và OECD vì một tương lai xanh, số và nhân văn. Nhân dịp này, thay mặt Chính phủ Việt Nam, tôi xin bày tỏ lời cảm ơn các nước, đặc biệt là Nhật Bản, Australia, Hàn Quốc, trong việc hỗ trợ thúc đẩy hợp tác giữa OECD với Việt Nam và các nước Đông Nam Á trong thời gian vừa qua và trong thời gian sắp tới. Tôi xin chúc mừng Canada và Philippines tiếp nhận vai trò đồng chủ tịch CEAP. Việt Nam cam kết tiếp tục đồng hành, góp phần tích cực và xây dựng vì một Đông Nam Á phát triển bền vững, gắn kết chặt chẽ hơn với cộng đồng quốc tế. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn. Thank you. Merci.
We now welcome here to the left-hand podium the Minister of Economy, Planning and Development for incoming co-chair of the Philippines, Mr. Arsenio Mbalisacan.
OECD's Secretary General Mathias Cormann, Excellencies, esteemed colleagues and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The Department of Economy, Planning and Development of the Republic of the Philippines is honored to accept the co-chairship of the OECD Southeast Asia Regional Program alongside our esteemed partner, the Government of Canada. This moment represents more than an institutional milestone. It reflects our shared commitment to advancing sustainable and inclusive development across Southeast Asia. Through this co-chairship, we welcome the opportunities to exchange experiences with regional partners and collaborate on shared priorities in key areas such as private sector engagement, digital economy, advancement, and innovation promotion. Canada has long been a steadfast partner of the Philippines in meeting its development goals. Canada's commitment to multilateral cooperation and sustainable development aligns closely with the Philippines' national priorities. We are committed to ensuring that the Southeast Asian Regional Program remains adaptive to evolving needs while building upon our established achievements. As co-chairs with Canada, we will foster deeper engagement between Southeast Asian nations and the OECD to focus on global challenges, particularly sustainable infrastructure, corporate social responsibility, and inclusive economic development. Recognizing Southeast Asia's unique climate vulnerabilities, the program will be a platform to tackle climate action through coordinated adaptation and mitigation strategies, green finance solutions, and knowledge sharing and sustainable development practices. The Philippines brings to this role a deep understanding of the region's diverse economies, valuable experiences in navigating complex development challenges, and an unwavering commitment to inclusive growth. We envision the program as a dynamic platform that not only facilitates policy dialogue, but also drives tangible improvements in the lives of our people. We thank the OECD, the outgoing co-chairs, Australia and Vietnam, and all member countries and regional partners for entrusting us with this critical responsibility. We also express our enthusiasm for working closely with our program counterparts, whose expertise and commitment to international cooperation are well recognized. To our OECD partners, Canada, and all the program stakeholders, we do not take this responsibility lightly. The Philippines is committed to ensuring that the Southeast Asia Regional Program continues to evolve as a responsive and effective mechanism for addressing the region's development priorities. Thank you for this honor and opportunity. We look forward to our productive partnership in the years ahead.
We now welcome here to the podium the ASEAN Secretary General, Mr. Kao Kim Horn.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start by expressing my sincere gratitude to Secretary General Mathias Cormann and, of course, Costa Rica as the MCM Chair for the kind invitation. It is a great honor to address you today at the handover ceremony of the OECD Southeast Asia Regional Program Chairmanship from Australia and Vietnam to Canada and the Philippines. I extend my sincere appreciation to outgoing chairs for their leadership in fostering a more collaborative, productive, and closer partnership between the OECD and ASEAN. I also warmly welcome the incoming co-chairs as they take on this important role. This marks a timely opportunity to sustain momentum and explore new strategic cooperation in areas of mutual interest. Since 2014, SERB has been instrumental in supporting ASEAN member states' domestic reforms through policy dialogue, evidence-based analysis, and multi-stakeholder engagements. The implementation of the 2022 OECD ASEAN Memorandum of Understanding, covering 35 priority areas, demonstrates our shared ambition to promote a more competitive, sustainable, and inclusive region. Notably, SERB has supported the region's efforts to enhance the business environment. Initiatives such as the ASEAN OECD Good Regulatory Practices Network at its 10th convening this year highlight our joint work in making regulations future-ready and responsive to emerging challenges. ASEAN's use of OECD's toolkits, such as the Trade Facilitation Indicators and the Service Trade Restrictiveness Index, has enabled more targeted reforms and transparency, helping member states integrate more effectively into global value chains. On sustainable development, the OECD continues to work closely with ASEAN to chart green and digital transitions. This includes the development of the investment policy frameworks that align with climate and digital priorities. OECD's participation at the ASEAN Green Jobs Forum, which was launched in 2024, embodies shared interest in preparing ASEAN's workforce for the future. Inclusive growth also remains central to our collaboration. OECD support for the ASEAN SME Policy Index 2024 and inclusive business forums has helped policymakers track progress and scale practices that empower SMEs, strengthen innovation, and promote long-term value creation for all. As we move forward, the incoming co-chairmanship comes at a defined moment to align SERB with the recently adopted ASEAN Community Vision 2045 and its accompanying strategic plans. I encourage the OECD to deepen its engagement with a broader range of ASEAN sectoral bodies to ensure OECD's support remains responsive and forward-looking. Effective cooperation is not only about alignment, it also requires creativity and flexibility to navigate global uncertainties. In this context, I'm confident that Canada and the Philippines will stir our cooperation toward identifying new strategic priorities where the OECD can bring added value, particularly in advancing the implementation of our new vision, thereby reaffirming the enduring relevance of a rules-based multilateral trading system amidst ongoing global uncertainties. Finally, allow me to conclude by once again congratulating Canada and Philippines on the chairmanship and thanking all OECD members for their continued commitment to this meaningful collaboration. I thank you.
Now for the transfer of leadership, we invite to the stage the full membership of the Southeast Asia Regional Program Bureau, the representatives of Germany, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, the Netherlands, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, the United Kingdom, and the United
Good morning again. Today, we mark a milestone of deep and major strategic significance for both the OECD and the Latin American and Caribbean region. The launch of the strategic framework for the LAC region is more than a formal endorsement. It is a tangible expression of our shared commitment to renew and deepen our partnership. This moment is both timely and symbolic. As we approach the 10th anniversary of the OECD's LAC regional program, the framework offers not only a chance to reflect on a decade of fruitful cooperation, but also a platform to relaunch the OECD's engagement with the region, guided by fresh ambition and clear strategic purpose. This framework is a political tool, a common reference that brings greater coherence, visibility, and direction to the region's engagement with the OECD. It strengthens the region's voice within the organization, ensuring that the OECD standards and tools are more inclusive, more responsive, and better aligned with the complex realities and aspirations of our region. It also sends a powerful message. The OECD is not a closed club, but a platform for meaningful multilateral engagement, where ambition and reform are met with dialogue, support, and shared purpose. The Latin American and the Caribbean region is economically dynamic, geopolitically relevant, and marked by bold reform efforts and growing global leadership. The strategic framework adopted at this ministerial meeting reaffirms the OECD's global vocation and its commitment to multilateralism. It reflects our shared determination to engage more systematically and strategically with a region whose priorities and potential are vital to shaping a more inclusive and sustainable and resilient future. Looking ahead, the framework sets the stage for stronger leadership and renewed ambition in the governance of the LAC regional program. It will serve as a valuable tool to guide the work of the program's next co-chairs. We are confident that it will provide the clarity, structure, and momentum needed to make the program more results-oriented and policy-relevant in the years ahead. But turning political momentum into lasting impact requires more than declarations. It requires determination, delivery, and resources. Vision alone is not enough. A framework, no matter how well designed, can only be as effective as its implementation. That is why the next step must be the development of a credible, well-resourced implementation plan, one that is politically guided, technically sound, and financially supported. Costa Rica warmly acknowledges and expresses its deep appreciation to Japan for its financial contributions and steadfast commitment to the OECD Latin American and the Caribbean Regional Program. This collaboration highlights how members and partners can work across regions to strengthen the organization's impact. Latin America and the Indo-Pacific share common challenges and reform priorities, offering strong potential for deeper cooperation and mutual learning within the OECD framework. Let me conclude by expressing our deep appreciation to all of the OECD members, our regional partners, and of course the OECD Secretariat. This framework is a shared achievement, a testament to your leadership, your commitment to regional cooperation, and your belief in the power of shared values and strategic dialogue. Let us now ensure that it becomes a living instrument, one that delivers real outcomes and helps shape a stronger, more inclusive partnership between the OECD and the Latin American region, as well as the Caribbean. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now ask Secretary General Cormann and Minister Tovar to lead to the stage the co-chairs of the OECD LAC Regional Program, Colombia and Paraguay. The other Latin American members of the OECD, Mexico and Chile, all to the stage for a family photo, please. And the Latin American and Caribbean delegations who are welcomed to this MCM, Argentina, Brazil, Peru, and Uruguay, as well as the Secretariat of Economic Integration of Central America, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Development Bank of Latin America.